Parts and disassembly. We're going to remove the lid and talk about the pump system. This is a DGT style pump system. This is the pressure relief valve. The pickup tube goes down into the bottom of the hopper. This is the pump itself, and this is the pressure connecting tube. To remove the pump from the machine, you'll first depress the pressure relief valve to relieve any pressure that may be built up in the system. Pull the stem back out. Then, holding the vertical tube with your right hand, use your left hand to push the short tube into the vertical tube. Twist it to approximately a 45-degree angle, then pull up. Then we can remove the connecting tube from the vertical tube, which has the check valve and 2 O-rings on it. To remove the pumps from the machine, grasp the pump, rotating clockwise about 30 degrees, then pull the pump forward, and this will remove the drive shaft, the pump seal, and the pump assembly itself. Repeat the same procedure for the right side. These 2 pumps are interchangeable, so it doesn't matter which pump goes in which side. The only piece that is not interchangeable is the vertical tube. The straighter tube goes in the right-hand cylinder hopper. The tube with the sharp end goes in the left-hand hopper. Otherwise, all the parts to the pump, the pickup tube, the drive shaft are all interchangeable. We've removed the pumps from the machine. Now we're going to use our O-ring removal tool and separate all the O-rings from the parts, and we'll need to further disassemble the pumps. We'll take the O-ring off of the pressure relief and remove the O-ring from the pressure tube. Remove the check valve, and then lay the pressure tube down. The tube that goes into the hopper has 2 O-rings, so remove those. Repeat the same process on the other side. Remove all the O-rings. Now disassemble the pumps. Start by pushing in on the pickup tube. Rotate the tube counterclockwise until the slot lines up with the hook. Remove the pickup tube, the pressure spring, and the pressure valve from the pump. Then use the O-ring tool and remove the O-ring from the pickup tube. Remove the drive shaft from the pump. Remove the seal from the pump. Remove the 2 thumb screws. Separate the 2 halves of the pump. Remove the O-ring from the body of the pump using the O-ring tool. Then remove the drive gear and the driven gear. Repeat the same process for the second pump. One important thing to point out is the drive shafts have a ceramic coating where the seal rides on the shaft. If you drop the shaft and crack the coating, the shaft must be replaced. This is the part that is very critical to the operation of the machine. So, like all the parts, you want to keep a firm grip and handle these parts with care. Now we'll remove the beaters. Start by taking the retainer's knobs off the dispensing door. Remove the door from the machine. Remove the O-ring from the rod that holds the handles on. Pull the rod out. Pull up on the handle to expose the piston. Then lay the rod to the side. Remove the piston. Remove the O-rings. Then remove the rod from the center piston handle. Pull up on the handle to expose the piston. Remove the O-ring from the piston. Then completely remove the rod. At this point, pull the second piston out. Then remove the O-ring from the piston. Be careful to lay the pistons in a place where they don't roll off the table because they're easy to damage. Remove the O-rings from the back side of the faceplate. Grasp the beater and pull it out with 2 hands, being careful to support the back end so the shaft doesn't drop and damage the cylinder. Remove the beater seal from the back and grasp the scraper blades and rotate them up to release them from their clips. Grab the idler and pull it out of the end pusher. Then remove the end pusher from the beater frame. The scraper blades are ground on one side only. Notice if they have a bubble on both sides or the bumper has been flattened out, it means it is worn and needs to be replaced. These are to hold the scraper against the cylinder walls, and when they flatten out, they don't have the pressure that they should have. Now return and remove the second beater, repeating the same process. The machine is now disassembled except for removing the drip tray. Remove the shelf from the machine so you can clean behind the shelf that faces the machine. Be sure to clear out any spillage that might have happened during the operation of the machine. Wash the parts in warm water, then air dry them. Assembly. Put the support tray back on the machine. Then assemble the drip tray and lay it on the machine. Take the frames, put in the end pusher, line up the notch in the front, slide in the idler in the center, then seat the plastic in the opening in the back. Take the scraper blades and roll them in one at a time, supporting it with care. Put some lube on the back of the shaft, rubbing it around to distribute it. Then put on the beater seal. Put more lube on the back side of the beater seal, and that will complete the beater. Slide it back in and line it up with the opening in the back shaft. Make sure the idler is in the vertical position. Repeat the same process for the other frame. Now reassemble the door. Starting with the center piston, put on the H-gasket O-ring. You can use the O-ring tool to put the O-ring on. Make sure everything is seated in its rightful place. Put on a little bit of lube and apply on the top exposed surface of the O-ring, without putting lube inside the channel where the O-ring rides. Line up the piston with the handle slot, facing upward, then slide it into the door. If it rotates around some, don't worry. Just pick up a handle, put it in the slot, and turn it to line it up. Then push it into place. Take an end piston, put an O-ring on it, then slide another O-ring over the first slot to the second slot until it is in place. Put some lube over the exposed portion of both O-rings. Insert the piston into the door with the handle slot facing upward, then push it all the way down. Take another end piston and repeat the same process as the other end piston. Start putting the handles in. Start from the left side and make sure the handle is facing away from you. Otherwise, you won't be able to dispense anything. Once you've done that, advance to the second handle, inserting the rod through it. Put in the third handle, inserting the rod through it as well. Put the small O-ring on the end of the rod to keep it from sliding out during use. With all handles pulled up, flip the door over to its back side. Place the O-rings in the back of the door, pressing them down into the slot. Lube the exposed portions of both O-rings. You are now ready to install the door assembly onto the machine. Grab it with both hands, lining it up along the studs, and work it onto the machine. Keep one hand against the door while you put one of the thumb screws on to make sure there's no chance of the door falling off. Put in the other 3 thumb screws. With a towel or cleaning cloth, tighten the screws in a crisscross pattern. Never use tools on the screws. They only need to be hand tightened. Now you're ready to put the pump together. Take the body of the pump. The gear with the triangle goes onto the space with the hole in it. Don't worry about putting the gears in the wrong spot because the gears won't fit into the wrong place. The gears are interchangeable with the pumps, so it doesn't matter what pump they go back into. Put the pump gasket in place. Do not lube the gears, just lube the surface of the O-ring. The cover plate will only go on one way, so make sure it is all the way sealed when applied. Put the lock screws on, using a towel or cloth to firmly tighten the screws. Next is the pickup tube. Drop the button down inside, then the spring. Take the pickup tube and put the O-ring on the tube. Then line up the slot with the pin. Push the pickup tube down and turn the handle where it points straight out towards you. Now go to the second one. Next, put back in the pump seals. Put some lube around the inside of the pump seal so that it seals against the shaft. Put some lube around the outside to help form a seal in the body of the pump. Take the second pump and do the same process. Take the shafts and insert them into the machine and twist them until they go into the pump drive in the back. Take the 2 pickup tubes, which get 2 O-rings each, and apply them to each pickup tube. Now slide the O-ring onto the short tube that goes between the pickup tube and the pump. One end is larger than the other. The large end is the one that receives the check valve. Use your O-ring tool to snap it into place. Do the same for the second short tube. Going over the top, put on an O-ring for each tube. Then go over the back and put on an O-ring for both tubes. Put a little lube over both O-rings' exposed surfaces. Stand both tubes upright. On both pressure reliefs, insert an O-ring on the back side. Put a little lube on both O-rings. Drop them in each pickup tube and pull them through. You're now ready to put the parts back into the machine. Though it isn't necessary, for convenience, take the shaft out, put it into the pump, slide it in, rotating it to the right until the shaft engages. Then rotate it back to the left until it catches the hook that secures over a pin. Do the same thing for the second pump. Next, install the pickup tube. Stick the short pump pipe into the pickup tube. Engage it into the slot in the bottom of the hopper. Turn it to where everything lines up. Then slide the short tube until it engages into the pump. Do the same for the other side. Push the pressure relief pins in. Sanitizing the machine and final steps. Remove the pickup tube from the hopper. Pour sanitizer into the hopper and let it flow down into the cylinders. Turn on the beaters, which also run the pumps. Now it will circulate the sanitizer through the pumps, rotating the beaters in the sanitizer. Brush the cylinder walls with a brush in the outer pump mechanism, exposing everything to the sanitizer for 2 minutes. When you finish one side, do the other. Drain out all of the sanitizer. Pour in a small amount of mix to flush out any residual sanitizer. After all the bubbling has stopped, that means the cylinder is full. Engage the pumps and prime the 2 pumps before you put the pressure tube in. Then start the machine. Now you've primed the pumps and put the machine in automatic. It will begin pressurizing the cylinders. The compressors will turn on, and it will show the HOT value.